All right, today we're jumping right into a pretty provocative document. It's a white paper called The Enemy Within, and it makes this incredible claim that there's been a long, deliberate war fought against the very idea of truth in America. It's a heavy accusation, and the paper lays out a whole trail of breadcrumbs that we're going to follow. So, right from the abstract, this paper pulls zero punches. It says America's foundational beliefs, they didn't just change over time. No, it claims they've been subjected to a deliberate dismantling. And you got to understand, that's not just describing a shift in thinking. That's a serious accusation. So it makes you ask, right? Who's being accused, and what exactly are they saying was torn down?
The paper even has a name for this supposed attack, and it's a wild one: epistemicide. Now, just think about that word for a second. Episteme, that's Greek for knowledge or understanding. And you know what side means? It means to kill. So we're not talking about a slow, gentle change here. The paper is literally accusing someone of the murder of a way of knowing. It's framing this as a kind of intellectual war.
Okay, so to really get what this paper is arguing, you have to get your head around the two sides it says are at war. The whole argument, the entire thing, is built on this one core idea, that for a long time now, there's been this huge battle in America over what the word truth even means.
And here it is, the central conflict. On one side, you've got realism. The idea here is that truth is something you discover. It's out there, it's objective, and our job is to find it. But on the other side, you have what's called constructivism. And this view says no, truth isn't found, it's made. It's something we build as a society using our language and our power structures. The paper's entire narrative is about this supposed shift from the idea that we discover truth to the idea that we create it.
So, where did this all start, according to the paper? Well, it points to a really old philosophical debate, a crack that appeared over this idea of universals. Sounds academic, I know, but stick with me. It's like this. Is there a real objective thing called humanity that we all share? Or is humanity just a word, just a label we stick on billions of different individuals? Realism says the category is real. The other view, nominalism, says, nope, it's just a name. And the paper's point is this. Once you start treating huge concepts like justice or even humanity as just convenient labels, you start to lose your anchor to objective reality.
Okay, so if this was, as the paper claims, a deliberate dismantling, then who did the dismantling? Who were the architects? Well, this is where the dossier gets really specific. It's not just about abstract ideas anymore. It starts naming names. It lays out this whole trail of influence, pointing to the specific people and the institutions it says are responsible.
The paper argues this all happened in three big escalating waves. First, you had the philosophical seeds. This is where thinkers like John Locke and Immanuel Kant supposedly planted the first seeds of doubt about a truly objective reality. Then came the second wave, institutional application. This is where the paper says people like John Dewey took those philosophical ideas and actually embedded them into America's schools and government. And finally, you get the postmodern break. This is where thinkers like Derrida and Marcuse are accused of just hitting the gas pedal and radically deconstructing the entire concept of truth itself.
And this quote, this one really nails the end point of that whole journey. The paper zeroes in on this line from the philosopher Richard Rorty, who famously defined truth as what our peers will let us get away with saying. Just let that sink in. Truth isn't about what's real anymore, it's about what we can convince each other is real. It's about social permission. And according to the paper, that's the moment the final chord connecting truth to reality is just snipped. And the paper points to thinkers like Judith Butler as taking this idea to its ultimate conclusion. It highlights the argument that gender isn't a fixed thing, but something that's performative. You know, like a role that we act out. But the paper claims the argument goes even deeper, suggesting that even our understanding of biological sex isn't a simple fact, but a concept that's been shaped and defined by social power structures over time. And look, these ideas, they didn't just stay locked up in academic journals. The paper alleges that they were actively spread through some very powerful and influential channels. It names major universities like Harvard, influential think tanks like the Frankfurt School, professional groups like the American Psychological Association, and even huge global bodies like UNESCO. The argument is that these were the pipelines that carried these ideas into the cultural bloodstream. All right, so we've looked at the what, the core philosophical shift, and the who, the alleged architects. But now we get to the really critical part, the so what. Why does any of this matter? The paper's final section hammers this home, arguing that this was never just some dusty debate for philosophy professors. It claims this shift has had huge, tangible, real-world consequences for everyone.
The paper lays it out like a chain reaction, a line of falling dominoes. It all starts with that first domino: philosophy rejects realism. That tips over the next one, education, which shifts its focus from seeking truth to social engineering. That in turn knocks over the legal system, which starts to value policy goals more than objective justice. And the very last domino to fall? Culture itself, where the idea of a fixed, stable identity gets replaced with something much more fluid and constructed.
And that right there is the ultimate claim of this dossier, that a seemingly abstract argument in philosophy didn't stay abstract. It didn't stay in the ivory tower. The paper contends that this battle over the definition of real has fundamentally reshaped America's laws, its classrooms, and maybe most profoundly, its very sense of self.
So what we have in this paper is a really stark and provocative story about a supposed epistemicide. Now, whether you buy its arguments or you think it's completely off base, it forces us to confront a question that feels like it's at the absolute center of so many of our current conflicts. And it's a simple one. What happens when an entire society can no longer agree on what is real?